Hey there, it's Kamisha Brewer Dickerson with the CEO Clinician Podcast, where we teach new and emerging leaders how to be mentally healthy as you're doing business. During this show, you will hear stories about leadership and running a business effectively. I'll show you how I was able to transition from being an underpaid, overworked clinician to becoming the CEO clinician with a thriving private practice, a speaking and coaching business with multiple streams of income while working through grief and anxiety. You'll also hear from our incredible guests on how they were able to successfully build their businesses while facing mental health challenges of their own. Their stories are unbelievable. If you want to learn how to be mentally healthy as you're doing business, listen to this podcast and then head over to cbrewerconsulting.com to grab a copy of my book and learn how to work with us. Ready to hear the episode? Let's get started. Hey there, welcome to another episode of the CEO Clinician Podcast. Today we are talking about a much heavier topic, but I think it's one that needs to be discussed. And so I wanted to present this conversation to you this week on managing stress in private practice, managing stress in private practice. And whenever I approach these podcast episodes, I usually record in bulk so that my team can get everything edited, uploaded, scheduled, and we're not constantly pushing for content and waiting for me to get things done. So I record in bulk. And ironically enough, at the time I am recording this episode, it has been a very stressful season in my practice and in my personal life. And so I hope that you guys can really feel a different level of authenticity from me today from a very stressful place as we're talking about how to manage stress in private practice. So I have been in the field of business, entrepreneurship, marketing, branding, all the things since I was about 19 years old. And I am in my 30s. Don't worry about the number right now. So I have seen the ebbs and flows of business. I have seen business from the lens of a nonprofit. As when I served as CEO, I've seen it from the lens of an employee, and now I see it from the lens of the employer and the CEO of my business. And the stress lenses have been different over the years. And I'm very grateful to be in a position to where I've been able to experience the ebbs and flows in different seasons and different capacities with different titles and different responsibilities. And so I bring all of that experience into the conversation. I bring all of my skill set, my expertise, all the years of blood, sweat, and tears. I've got major sweat equity in my company, and I know that, that greatly affects the way I lead and the way I show up to serve because of all those things I bring with me. So for the sake of our conversation this week, I want you guys to start really focusing on the areas of your practice where you feel stressed, okay? And your stress, let's just be honest, your stress may be because of a lot of different factors. For many of you, you're stressed in private practice because you don't even know what you're doing. Like you don't know how to run the business side of the practice. Some of you are stressed because you've never seen anyone who looks like you, especially if you identify as BIPOC, but you've never seen anyone who looks like you be successful in private practice and not be stressed out. You know what I'm saying? Like there's so many people that like we look up to, we admire them, but we also know just by the way they look in the face, right? Tired, bags under their eyes, not related to health, but just straight up exhaustion and fatigue. Like they're doing well, but it also looks like they're physically paying for the success that they're experiencing. And so your stress may be coming from a lot of different places. Some of you may have grown up in poverty, and the idea of having extra money is just a foreign concept to you. Some of you guys are in a relationship and your partner is just not supportive of your dream and your vision of private practice. And some of that could be because they don't understand it either, or because they haven't even seen anyone be successful in business and all they know about is somebody working a 9 to 5 or working 12 to 16-hour shifts doing really hard manual labor. And so anything outside of that seems like a fairy tale to them. So all of those things could absolutely be contributing to your stress. So what I really want to challenge you guys to do with the conversation from this week's podcast episode is to, first of all, acknowledge the fact that you are stressed. And that's okay. Acknowledge exactly where the stress is coming from. You don't have to be solution focused and fix it. right off the bat. We'll get to that. But for now, you need to just acknowledge where your stress is coming from and what's triggering you about it. Now, try not to do therapy on yourself. I always recommend that every therapist have a therapist that they see, just because we need somebody to help us when it's heavy and when things are stressful. So you need to acknowledge it. And one of the things that I discovered this year, as we added on, more services, more premium price programs, expanded our team to help me carry the weight, I noticed that I was experiencing decision fatigue. And decision fatigue is a different type of fatigue. We talk about compassion fatigue a lot in the field because, we're big-hearted people and we love people and we want to serve and want to show up for our clients and hold space. And I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. Sometimes I get tired of holding space for everybody. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that's our role as therapists. I think we need to hold space for the clients who are on our roster. But some of the larger problems in the world, we don't have to hold space for that because that's stressful and we all have a capacity. And so with the acknowledgement, I think you also need to understand your capacity. But as you're holding space and you're trying to figure it out, decision fatigue is absolutely a part of that, because what I noticed this year for myself is there were just a lot more decisions that had to be made and there was no way around them. There were team members that had to be brought on. And I always challenge therapists that I'm coaching is to make sure before you hire somebody that you have enough revenue in the business coming in on a consistent basis, or even just put to the side in savings to make sure you can pay them for at least 6 months. I don't recommend anyone bringing on a contractor or a virtual assistant, whoever, and you can only pay them for 30 days and you're not sure if you got another 30 days you can pay them. Like, you're not in a position to hire yet. You do need to hire before you're ready, but a part of the readiness is just saving up the money or just looking at the consistency of your cash flow to see if this even makes sense for you at this point. So there were team members that needed to be brought on. There were reports I needed to look at. There were decisions I needed to make. There were meetings I needed to have with my CPA. There were meetings I needed to have with my office manager for my practice. There were meetings I needed to have with my husband and conversations about what was next, especially with us adding the podcast this year. We'd never done a podcast and it was just different. And so I found myself being mentally exhausted because I was working on my business more than working in my business, which was the goal. But as it started happening, I had to adjust. But I had to first acknowledge the reality that I was experiencing decision fatigue. And it was okay for me to step back because I had put systems in place. I had put people in place. I had trained them. I had documented our processes. And it was okay for me to step out of that once everyone felt comfortable in their new role. So the acknowledgement of the stress is key. And this is true if you're starting your practice and if you're scaling, you still need to acknowledge. The next component is absolutely creating space and giving yourself permission to be overwhelmed, right? So a lot of the people I tend to attract through the podcast and just in life and even in my practice tend to be high functioning women with extremely high levels of anxiety. So these are doers, the ambitious people of the world, the people who get stuff done, not a lot of excuses. Typically Myers-Briggs, we're talking INTJ folks. I'm an INTJ. So not really in tune. I don't want to say not in tune, but feelings aren't our primary thing. It's thoughts and action. Like, that's just how we're wired. And so we tend to be a little bit more on edge because of just how we're naturally wired. And so I think it is so important as you are trying to manage stress in private practice to acknowledge when you're overwhelmed and then try to backtrack and say, okay, how did I get here? How did I get stressed? What led up to this? So in the future, you can try to minimize those things as much as possible. But if you're overwhelmed at this point in the year, it's okay. And you don't have to get it right. You don't have to get it perfect. I teach people how to build a practice imperfectly and just get their services out there, get the business side ready to do business and then start marketing. But it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. But you have to create space for that. And many of you myself included, haven't really had space to do that because it's so much pressure to be on point and to show up and to be successful and to, finish college, finish grad school, make good grades, keep your scholarships, get an internship, and then find a place to do your practicum, get all your hours, get your license, pay the fees, study for the boards. In Arkansas, we still had to do oral exams at the time that I got my license. So it was just all this constant pressure, and it is absolutely overwhelming, and it can break you if you're not careful, and if you don't set boundaries, and if you don't create space for yourself to live and to breathe and to detach who you are from what you do. And y'all, I have done years and years and years of inner work off and on with therapists, off and on with pastors and mentors and advisors, of trying to detach my identity as a person from the work that I do, because you guys see, like, oh my goodness, Cameisha's doing this, she's speaking here, she's doing this event, she's partnering with this company, there's a collaboration with this organization, she's featured over here, like, and all those things are true, but that's not who I am as a person. That's what I do in my career. And so if you notice, even on social media, a lot of people, they know nothing about my personal life. And that's intentional. I think there's a balance that you have to find in private practice of how much self-disclosure. And again, this is going to matter as far as like your population and who you serve in your practice, and how many boundaries they need, especially if you're working with people who struggle with boundaries, people who would like try to look up your children and figure out where they go to school at. Like, you want to limit how much access and public access you post on social media. People can find you. I mean, that's just the reality. But I think there has to be a balance to manage your stress level as far as how much of your personal life you allow people to see. I think there is a balance between being authentic and being vulnerable and still being relatable online and offline. That's another episode for another day. But if it is going to stress you out to post pictures of you making snacks for your kids and trying, especially those of you that work with parents and children, don't post it. Okay. If that's going to be stressful for you, weed it out, set a boundary. You can still show up well, create content, or hire someone to create content, but you don't have to be all things to all people. You don't have to be in all the different spaces. You don't have to go above and beyond to make everyone else feel like, oh, this is a credible therapist, or this is a credible clinician. Like, if they can't see that from the work that you do, your licenses, your credentials, like if they can't see that, then maybe it's not for them to see. But I don't think it's something that you guys, myself included, need to be constantly worried about, because it limits the space. And if you don't have space to give yourself permission to be overwhelmed, you're constantly going to be stressed out. And, we know what stress does to the body. We know what stress does to the nervous system. We know what stress does to the neurological system. Like, we know those things, but even with us knowing it as therapists, I feel like we're the worst at implementing the things that we teach our clients. And I think in this season, we have to be a little bit more responsible with our own lives and with our own mental health, a little bit more diligent and disciplined with the opportunities we say yes to, because every yes in an area requires you to say no in another area. And I'm all about business partnerships and networking, but I don't take every opportunity that comes across our desk. The number of contracts, oh my God, the number of contracts that have been very, very lucrative that I have turned down is unreal. Some things I have turned down, my husband has no idea. He probably he'd probably be a little bit upset, like, what? You turned it down? What's wrong with you? Like, I say that jokingly, but sometimes it's just not a good time, or it's just not a good fit, or there's already enough on your plate. And those that are like, whoever you pray to, I pray to God. I'm a Christian, and I think I've been very open about that. But I remember the season where I was asking God for opportunities and praying for God to send me people to serve and opportunities to speak and to train and to get my message out into the world. And He has done that, and my plate is full, and I'm grateful for that. However, there are times where I have to say I don't have capacity to do that, and those are hard conversations to have with yourself and with your team and with the other person who's on the other side of the table and on the other side of the contract. So we don't have to get our attorneys involved and do the negotiation to get the terms like down to a science where everyone's happy with the terms of the contract for the project. But y'all, sometimes this scaling life, it is stressful. And in order to manage it, you got to create space for it. Another thing I wanted to share with you guys for this episode is, to manage the stress, you have to be a leader and you have to lead your practice. I spend a lot of time working with therapists who are just starting out and therapists who are more advanced and ready to scale. And I help them through our VIP coaching program for 12 weeks, the therapists who are looking to scale. But leadership is a huge component of being able to take your practice to the next level. And I'm not talking about next level of going from a solo practice to the group practice. Next level maybe you're working 5 days a week and now you only work three. That could be next level because that means you can be more present with your family. So your next level of success or your next level for your practice doesn't matter, but the leadership and the decision making is what gets you there. So a great way to lead your practice is through delegation and hiring team members. And I know right now, especially those of you that are just starting out, some of you have a full practice, but when you hear the word hire, you freak out immediately, which lets me know and should be an indication for you as well that you are having mindset issues around hiring. I'm not saying bring on somebody and pay them $140,000 a year as a W 2 employee. I'm not saying that. I'm saying hire one person at a time to handle a specific role or a specific task within your practice. Work out a contract, bring them on as, a 1099 contractor, work with your CPA. I'm not a CPA. Depending on how your business is structured and the entity structure, y'all need to work that out. But you can afford to hire one person. You can afford to hire an intern. And God, let me put this tip in here. Those of you that need help with social media, don't hire or bring on a counseling intern or a social work intern to help with your social media because that's not their skill. You need to hire a marketing intern to help with social media because that's what they are learning and those are the things that they want to implement. So if you hire anybody, especially an intern, to take stress off of you and they don't know anything about marketing, social media, hashtags, messaging, creating reels for Instagram or TikTok, if they know nothing about that, that hire of that intern is going to be stressful for you. So the hires that you need to make in the form of delegation need to be things that remove stress off your plate. So you need to hire people who are equipped and who have skills, who learn fast, who can implement your processes quickly. That's how you get stress off your plate. I'll probably create a separate episode about hiring and what to look for when you're hiring for specific roles in your practice. But those are just some of the things you need to be looking for because it's going to take stress off of you. So mindset wise, if you're like, I can't afford it, you don't even know that. You've decided already that you can't afford something. You don't know how much it's going to cost. You don't know who the person would be. Sometimes the interns do it for free just because they want the experience and a letter of recommendation. Like you haven't even explored options. You just heard me say you should hire and you immediately shut down the opportunity because of your own mindset blocks. And that's going to create stress for you because you cannot be all things to all people in all positions of your private practice. It is going to stress you out. And I have done it. And as I've gotten older over the years, I have decided that this is not how I want to live my life. And this isn't how I want to lead my practice. So I want to give you guys some different action steps. Usually I say, if you're interested in working with me and you want to do one-on-one coaching, click the link in the show notes. Like that is there. Like it's always going to be there. So yes, if you know you need help with managing stress because you don't know what you're doing or you don't know what you're doing next as far as scaling, then yes, click it. Let's get on a coffee date. Let's talk. But my action steps for you this week are to go to your calendar, Google Simple Practice Outlook. I don't care what calendar you're using, but pick out 2 or 3 days in your week this summer, like in the next 60 to 90 days, to take off and take a vacation. And you have got to get past the, I need the money. I can't afford it. You got 60 days to figure out how to get the money. So you can be resourceful and you can do a yard sale. You can DoorDash. I don't care what you do. You can book a speaking engagement. I teach therapists in my signature program, Private Practice Ready, how to create cash injections on demand. So whenever they need it, they know how to go get the money. And it's not a, well, I can't take off because I don't have the money. Okay, well, go get the money so you can take off. We got to be solution focused now at this point. But block off 2 to 3 days so you can get a long weekend. It can, I don't care, Thursday or Friday, block it off through the weekend, or Monday or Tuesday, block it off through the weekend. But you need some rest. If you feel it in your body, if you're struggling to sleep, if you're gaining weight, if you are having any other signs and red flags and warnings that are happening, if you're irritated, snappy with your spouse and your partner, your kids think you're mean and you're just grumpy, you probably need a break. Okay. And you need to create your own criteria of what to look for so you can manage your stress and know when you need a mental health break for your own life. Okay. So thank you guys so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this podcast episode about managing stress in your private practice. As always, if you are ready to work with me or just get to know me and I can get to know where you are in your practice, click the link, schedule a coffee date, let's chat, and I will be happy to share with you about the options and ways that I can support you through coaching to help you build your practice, but most of all, manage your stress as you're building. So I will see you guys in the next episode.